you were doing the freelancing work, and what did the day-to-day look like for you then? That you would have been right in the grind.
Yeah, I mean, listen, because it was New York, it was very expensive to live in the city. In the beginning, when I first lived at my sister's house, in Staten Island, I would stay at home some days, but then also hitch a ride with them to the city, and just go sit in a coffee shop and like be at Starbucks, ask for a cup of coffee and a banana, and like grind all day in the Starbucks and like try to like get free refills. Like it was just like that was all the money I had, like coffee, banana, that's really it. $5 a day to like survive. And then, just on Craigslist and like, we didn't have social media other than Facebook really. Twitter was like, I didn't use Twitter at the time. And so I was just like grinding on Craigslist. I would like post 4 to 5 times a day of like, hey, anyone need a Kickstarter video? Hey, anyone need a wedding video editor? Hey, anybody need a promo video? And I would like make these signs and like all these like texts and just kept trying different titles and posts to try to market myself. When I got out of the film and that's how I kind of got the TV and film opportunities, was through the Craigslist postings.
Hi, and welcome to another episode on Unlocked from Within. Today we have DRock, who's also known as DRock. He is a filmmaker, producer, creative director, and a fashion designer. DRock is notably known as the executive creative director for Gary Vaynerchuk, who is also known as Gary V. Over the past 8 years, he's been the director of the Ask Gary V show, creator of Daily V, and the storyteller behind quite a few of Gary's notable short films, and of course thousands of videos across all platforms on social media. He is in the business of creating stories around people and brands. Today, let's welcome DRock on Unlocked from Within. Hey DRock, welcome to Unlocked from Within. How are you?
I'm well, bro. How are you?
Yeah, good. We finally found a time to make it happen. So really looking forward to this episode. I'm just going to get straight into it and basically wanted for the audience to know more about and get starting from about your childhood and how that looked.
In general, just like what I did as a child, or like, what do you mean?
Yeah, so in general, like just from when you were little, even on I believe you were homeschooled, and how that looked like and how you found that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I was born with a cleft lip, which is what I have on my lip, and had a lot of surgeries as a kid. And my parents, decided instead of keep pulling me in and out of school, they would homeschool me. And my mom also just didn't believe in the traditional education system. She had 2 older daughters before me, and then the youngest. So me and my youngest sister were homeschooled together. By the time I made it to like senior year, my younger sister went into like, a normal regular like high school. But then I went into college at an early age, probably around the age of 17. I was in college already, majoring in radio and television broadcasting. But a lot of my childhood was spent just like any other kid, like a lot of sports, a lot of activities. I will say that my mom pushed my creativity and allowed for me to have time to like work on my creativity. And so like, she would always push me like, hey, like, you want to be an artist, you want to be an architect, you want to be a chef, and like allow me to follow the passion and allow me to try and dabble in everything that I've liked. And at the age of 14, my oldest sister had a nephew, a baby, which ended up being my nephew. Actually, I'm sorry, at the age of 11. And so like we would go into like Brooklyn, and at the time we lived in Pennsylvania, which is like 2 hours away, but we would go into Brooklyn like almost every other week to babysit my nephew. And like around 2 or 3, he started like playing with toys, and like we started playing with Thomas and the Tank Engines and all these like fun like building sets and stuff. And my oldest sister bought like video camera for him, like for us to film him. I started to fall in love with like the video cameras at that age. I was like, yo, this is so much fun. I'll make little like movies with my nephew and like the Thomas and Tank Engines and stuff. And then I was able to bring the footage home and I actually edit the footage on my laptop in iMovie. And that's when I really started to fall in love with like filmmaking. I was like, wait a minute, you can like edit and add music and like tell a story. This is so cool. So by the age of 14, I kind of like borrowed, aka stole my sister's camera, and just started like film videos in the back of the woods with my friends and sister, and like we would just like make adventure movies and trailers and like all these like fun movies, and I would just like spend time editing that footage to make it interesting. I even like downloaded a ton of like videos off of YouTube just to like learn how to edit, you know. Watch a bunch of like YouTube tutorials. You know, there's this one guy, the Final Cut King, known as Zach King now. He's an incredible editor and storyteller and editing magician, and I followed a lot of his work, and I actually learned a lot of how to edit through him. And it's funny, like, probably 4 years at this point, 5 years at this point ago, Gary and I got to meet him. I got to tell him,
Oh,
like,
that's awesome.
I learned so much from you, and like it was cool to see him work. And so that's it. I mean, great parents, great childhood, homeschooled, kind of like really just fell into filmmaking. And like as soon as I graduated my 2.5, 3 years of college, I did an associate's degree. I actually got into a car accident while I was like working at Amazon's warehouses, totaled my car completely.
Wow.
And my parents were kind of like, we can't like help you get another car, and I didn't have the money to do it. And I didn't really want to like stay in Pennsylvania. I always wanted to go to like film school. So I was applying to like Full Sail down in Florida or like NYU and the New York Film Academy and all that. And then ended up realizing that I didn't have enough money, and I didn't want to take out loans. I'm very frugal that way. So I just said, you know what? I'm gonna move to my sister's basement in Staten Island, live with them. They gave me I lived in their basement on the couch and lived with them for about a year, year and a half. Just literally grinding on Craigslist and like finding all these odd and end like video jobs. Didn't know how to charge, didn't know how to do anything. Got a side job at Best Buy. Was working at Best Buy, got fired, had this like wedding video editing job in Long Island, would commute from Staten Island to Long Island with no car, which ended up being like a car ride to like a ferry, a bus to a ferry to a train, and walked about 15 minutes, and I did that every day. Which ended up being like
that's commitment there.
Yeah, it was 6 hours of commuting, 3 hours there, 3 hours back, and like an 8-hour work day. And then like 3 weeks of that, I was like, this is not gonna work out. So I ended up leaving that job. And then ultimately just started picking up the freelance work again. Moved out of my sister's like basement a year and a half later. And then by the time I got to Staten, I moved out into Queens, Jackson Heights, shout out. Lived there for about 2 years. Worked on a bunch of film sets and TV shows, all independent and like smaller productions. Was like holding wires, getting coffee, all the classic like production assistant stuff. And then eventually realized I didn't want to like climb the rungs like that like manner. I wanted to like be more in control of the creative and like film and edit. So then I went back into film and editing production on my own. Really learned how to charge and like started educating people on how to like charge as a filmmaker, and yeah, just started to grind as a freelancer.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how old were you when you went back to freelancing?
So I was 19 when I moved to New York.
Yeah.
Probably like 21 and a half to 22.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
And like from like, what was like one of the things that like, I don't know if you can remember, but like with the homeschooling, was there anything that stood out that you feel you use today in a positive way?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I always wanted to be a filmmaker, right? Like Steven Spielberg, Peter Greenberg, like all the great filmmakers. I've always wanted to like tell stories and like create my Harry Potter or my Lord of the Rings or something like that. And I was drawing all the time, writing like fantasy novels, like working on like storytelling. And I've always wanted to be like the person who made the next Mickey Mouse or something. So when starting to work for Gary, 2 or 3 years in, it's a hard role. Like, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of like patience and everything. And I heard that he wanted to also build the next Walt Disney. And that's what kind of like hooked me to stay here for like the last 8 years that I've been here. So that, like, creating intellectual property and IP and characters and developing storylines, but then also, you know, being homeschooled, I had friends and I had a lot of certain like people around me. My parents and sister, obviously, we were all very close. But the one thing I was on YouTube all the time studying, like watching tutorials and watching motivational videos and all this stuff. And there was one video by Will Smith, where he talked about the 9 secrets of success. Some fan like edited it together. And I watched that video probably every single day and talked about his work ethic, his drive, his hunger, how he like thinks about manifestation and all those things. And I always said, if I can make a video like that, and then like back in the day, I thought, oh, if I can make Pursuit of Happiness, or I can make 7 Pounds, or I can make, I Am Legend, like cool films that like talked about like the humanity, like how good humans were and how strong we were and capable. I thought I could like I would die a happy man. I didn't realize that what ended up happening was, and I said, like, if I can make one of those and I leave an impact on this earth, that would be insane. And I can happily say at this point in my life that I feel like I made quite a few of those videos now. And
That's
like
awesome.
I am content as a human, and I've left my imprint on this world already. I think that, moving forward now is all going to be brownie points, and I just want to keep doubling down on that and helping spread more positivity and, all the things that make a good person,
So awesome, so awesome. And like with like, is there anything that is there any lessons or advice that stand out that your parents have instilled in you that you feel you use today and try to spread and add value to?
I mean, my parents were so like good moral and like very I grew up very Christian and religious, and then turned Messianic too. And like I went through so much religion and so much good values and good morals. It's funny, thinking about the V Friends project that we're working on with all the like characters, animals, and like traits. As a kid, I had picture frames around my room with like courage, and it was like a lion, and it was like something like, I don't remember the elephant what it said, but like I had huge pictures of big animals on my wall, safari animals, and I
That's
love
so
them.
cool, so cool.
And they all had like kind traits underneath them. So I would say like I kind of was born into, I think, the role that I'm like currently living.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. And so what, your mum, like how old were you when your mum discovered that interest in with working with the camera and whatnot?
Well, I don't think my mom did anything. I think, she just enabled me. Like if I
Yeah,
was like doing a little bit less of my homework, but I was
yeah,
like creating stuff,
yeah,
she allowed me just the time in my room to just sit there and like work on stuff,
yeah,
I think, besides my like athletic out like sports and like friends and like field trips and like stuff like that, I was mostly like working on stuff like either drawing maps for fantasy worlds or writing out chapters in my books, or like drawing, or I thought I was going to be an architect, so I was drawing all the time on architect boards. I was drawing like characters all the time. Like I was just like always trying to, like, I was in like music camps. I did like violin, piano, all these different instruments. I think that really helped with my storytelling as a filmmaker, just because I fell in love with the music part of it so much. So I think she didn't really like say, "Hey, you should do this," but enabled me to explore those things.
so cool, so cool. And so like doing that amount of hours back then, it was just fun for you, and I'd imagine time would have flown for you, like it wouldn't have felt like work.
No, I mean, listen, like as a kid, I think you always feel like time takes forever, right? Like
Yeah.
you're always, like I did so many chores, and I worked with my dad in construction, and like there, I remember the days I was like working in construction from the age of 14 to like when I went to college, and then also had a summer job at the age of 16. and then also like had other odds and end jobs. I was always working, and I think those days always sucked. And I always said to myself, like, hey, if you ever find something that you truly love and you can make money and you're good at it, work your ass off. And so I think, when I found filmmaking, it became the thing, the vehicle. It's almost like an athlete and they like find basketball and they're decent at it, but they don't want to be an athlete, but they're decent enough to where it can be their ticket out. I think filmmaking was that. I think I'm pretty ambidextrous storyteller, but I think filmmaking is the main vehicle for right now. That kind of like let me like express myself.
Yeah, love it, love it. And so how did it all come about? Like when you were doing the freelancing work, and like what did the day-to-day look like for you then? That you would have been right in the grind.
Yeah, I mean, listen, because it was New York, it was very expensive to live in the city. In the beginning, when I first lived at my sister's house, in Staten Island, I would stay at home some days, but then also hitch a ride with them to the city, and just go sit in a coffee shop and like be at Starbucks, ask for a cup of coffee and a banana, and like grind all day in the Starbucks and like try to like get free refills. Like it was just like that was all the money I had, like coffee, banana, that's really it. $5 a day to like survive. And then, just on Craigslist and like, we didn't have social media other than Facebook really. Twitter was like, I didn't use Twitter at the time. And so I was just like grinding on Craigslist. I would like post 4 to 5 times a day of like, hey, anyone need a Kickstarter video? Hey, anyone need a wedding video editor? Hey, anybody need a promo video? And I would like make these signs and like all these like texts and just kept trying different titles and posts to try to market myself. When I got out of the film and that's how I kind of got the TV and film opportunities was through the Craigslist postings. If I was not posting, I would be like responding to people. But then if I was not doing that, then I would also like go into like Kickstarter and try to find founders that have funded projects or trying to start funding projects and be like, hey, I'll make a Kickstarter video for you if you like let me have some of the earnings of like whatever you guys make. You don't have to pay me right now, or pay me now and I'll do a Kickstarter video. And so I did a bunch of those. But honestly, in my spare time, if I wasn't looking for work, I was working on like passion projects. I like really like me and my buddy Stefan, who actually ended up coming to work at Vayner for a long time. Literally this year, he just left to go do his own thing.
Oh wow!
So proud of him. Him and I were in college together, and so when I hired him, him and I were working on these like short videos about like traits. So like we had this one video called Drive, and we had like what is like the motivation behind Drive, and we made this like Nike-esque video. And then we had this one video called Courage, and like did it like made a cool like, video about courage. And those things were like the videos that I actually, A, didn't get paid for, B, just wanted them out of passion, C is the reason I got a lot of gigs. Like those videos are the ones that I kept sending out. And I did so much free work. I did so much like, hey, I don't have a portfolio. I want to add to it. Let me like film you and like help create promo videos. And then on top of free work, I always picked up odd and end jobs. Like I was trying to find, like I did this one restaurant video job where I was filming restaurant videos for $20 and a good meal. And so it's cool. I got to learn a lot about different restaurants in New York City. Got a $20 bill, which then was like enough to like start saving money, and then also had meals, or like I would take that big meal that I would get and split it in two. So I like a nice lunch and a nice dinner, or 2 nice dinners, and I would just spread that out, man, and like grind and hustle.
Awesome. And like, where do you think that came from? Like having the intuition to go, hey, I'm going to start sending stuff out for free and see if something sticks there. Like, was there something that stood out, or was it just a hunch?
Yeah, it was called, once I found that thing that I hated, like working in construction, and once I found that thing that I loved, I would fucking grind my face off.
Awesome.
It was
Love
that.
it.
It was the drive. It was the hunger of like, there's no one else in this world that's gonna help me. I need to go carve this out for myself, and that's what I ended up doing.
And there was always that belief there that as long as you put in the work, something's got to stick.
one quote in that video that Will Smith said was, we're gonna get on the treadmill together, but I'm gonna die before I get off that treadmill before like I quit, like to lose to you. And that always was like the thing. And then also like there was another thing in that video where he was like, hey, you know, you don't set out to build a wall. You set out to lay every brick as perfectly as it can be laid. And that's all I just kept doing, man, brick by brick, working, grinding, trying to figure it out. And like I truly believe, like even today, Gary says, hey bro, like we're wrapping up shop. I can't really do anything for you. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna go make 10 videos about the most influential people in the world without needing their time or energy, just going online and sourcing everything, send it to them and say, hey, I can do this for you. Let me have a job. And I think I would do pretty well for myself. The same thing is if anybody wants to work for me right now with Gary or VFriends, if someone spent the time right now to make a great video of Gary Vaynerchuk, and I've said this many times before, and they emailed it to me, 90% of the time, if it was great, I would hire them on the spot.
So cool. So cool.
I mean, it's so crazy to me how many people will hear that on this podcast, not believe me, or believe that 900 people will do it, and they won't do it themselves. I would be sitting there editing a video ASAP.
Awesome.
Like, you don't get any opportunity until you make it, and I truly believe in that. I truly like, even we were talking about like a lot of like the newer people that are coming into the workplace, and Gary believes they have tons of options. Like we're living in the greatest era of like optionality. Like kids know that you make 50 grand a year just freelancing on the side. So why go into a job where they gotta like work every hour? But I also think that when kids now get the job, they think they got it and that's all they have to do. Once you get the job, is actually the time to actually grind your face off, double, triple what it took you to get that job, and I really believe in that.
That's when the real work starts.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. And so how did from there, how did I guess you could say the chance meeting, the connection with meeting Gary and that relationship evolve? Like where did it all start?
Yeah, so in the second era after the film set, when I was working for 2 years on my freelance stuff, I had actually learned how to charge myself. I was reaching out to a ton of entrepreneurs and business people. My buddy and I had started a podcast and a blog called The Launching Creative. And we were interviewing entrepreneurs and business people and marketers and people like that, like Chris Rogan and I don't remember, John Lee Dumas and a few of the other like A-list like I would say like A-list like podcasters of the time, with Hal he had interviewed. So like we had done a few of these like interviews, and my buddy was like, hey, there's this guy like talking at Columbia University tonight. I'm like don't have money, and I'm like, any free event was like cool to me. So we went to this free event at Columbia University. This night is like 8 o'clock. And a guy walks out in jeans and Nikes in the backwards, hat and the sweater. I'm like, yo, this is like the vibe. Like I like this guy. I just got off a red eye from London. I've been working like on my new book tour. I loved his message that night. That night I went home, watched every video I possibly could of Gary. There was a lot of keynotes online, and there was a lot of like he had like interns filming like one-off videos once in a while. I didn't know anything about the wine like part of Gary. I had just watched like the few keynotes that he had online, and I said, "Hey, like, love your stuff. I think I can make a really cool and exciting video for you, free of charge. Would love to like make that for you." Thinking that if I got him, I could maybe leverage it and get a few other videos of other entrepreneurs and business people that actually might pay me. So, no response. I emailed him again a few times, no response. One day, I had made the most money I'd ever made on a freelancing job, and it was pouring rain in the city. I'm ghetto at this point, and was like carrying all my equipment, lighting, cameras, tripods, everything on my back, like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, running through the subways in New York City, pouring rain, getting soaked on, holding an umbrella, like just like a weird, like just craziness. Well, the job gets done. I'm in Midtown Manhattan. I lived at Queens like during this time, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna take a taxi. It's like I made money to give content. I had not ever taken my own taxi ever. Like I rode one with my ex's girl, like aunt once after like a dinner, or my mom like when I was a kid. And like I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna just do what they do in the movies, hold up my hand, order a taxi. Uber wasn't really around at all, so like that was not a thing. I didn't have the money for Uber for sure. Until I hopped in a taxi. I'm riding over the Queensboro Bridge in Manhattan here, and it's funny to tell the story because now, if you're riding the subways, there's much better like Wi-Fi and service on the trains. Now, like then there was no service. Like
Oh.
maybe if you go above ground. So that's why like I was on the Queensboro Bridge. I seen a tweet that Gary said of like, hey, I'm trying this app out called Kick. It's like a chatting app. A lot of kids use it for sexting now and like hooking up and stuff. But back in the day, it was like about like networking and connecting. Gary used it for like 7 minutes. He never been on the app since. He downloaded it. He said, "Hey, I'm trying out this app." It's like if he was talking about like TikTok or Whisper or any of these things that he had used in the past, and he was like, "Yo, like download the app on Twitter. Like, let's make a username. Come talk to me." Within those minutes, because I had service, I downloaded it, made a username, sent him a message with one of the video, the courage video I told you about earlier, which is a free video I made for myself and whatever. It was 1 minute long because I knew he was busy with his time. I said, "Hey, I would love to make a video for free. Here's a link. In 1 minute, watch it if you can." Within 3 minutes, he responded and he said, "Hey, I want you to follow me around for a day." So I follow him around for a day. I never met the guy. He didn't want to wear a mic. I met him. He was like halfway down the block. I met him when I got into the taxi cab. You know, I'm starting to film him like awkwardly, not even saying hello. He was on the phone with his mom. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put the camera down because like he's on the phone with his mom. I don't know this guy. I don't know if this is personal. And you know, he said, "Hey mom, I love you. I gotta go. I'll talk to you later." I picked the camera back up and I said, "Gary, can you just say that again for the camera? Because I don't want to like, I didn't want to like bother you." Like he looks me dead in my eyes. These are the first words he ever says to me. "Don't ever ask me to repeat myself ever again. My time's too important. Just film, and I'll tell you if you can't film anymore." So then I'm like, "Okay, fuck." And then so like I follow him throughout the whole day. I go back home. I'm looking at the footage. He's not wearing a mic again. I'm pissed. The video is like, there's no storyline. There's no arc. I'm like, what am I doing? 2 days later, I pick up the footage again. Like I walk away from it. 2 days later, I pick up the footage. And I remember this one point where Gary is recording audio for an article. Because he doesn't like sit there and type. He records audio and then someone will sit there and like transcribe it.
And that's the same with all the books he makes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with all the books he makes. I didn't know any of this at the time. So anyway, I'm able to use that audio. And the article that he's writing is called "The Clouds in the Dirt," which is like his theory of like chase your dreams, but then also work hard and like do the dirty work, which ended up being a huge theme for us. So I make this film. I send it to him. I'm like, fuck, I hope this is like good enough. And you know, like a minute, the end of the day, he like sent me a message like, "I fucking love it." He's tweeting it individually out to people on Twitter because that's where his audience was. He had like 15,000 on Instagram. He had like 20,000 on YouTube. He had like 1 million on Twitter because that's where like all the tech room was when he like had early like all the wine stuff and all that. He was tweeting it out individually to people. I was going in and making an Excel sheet and like just copy and pasting everybody. I started finding their emails online, started cold emailing like, "Hey, I made that video of Gary. If you want one, da, da, da." I got like 4 different like video jobs off of that.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, a month later, I'm like emailing him just to say thank you. Because the video went over well. Like people loved it. I got a few jobs. I said thank you. If you ever need anything, let me know. Didn't really hear back from him from that. And then I was up in a 72-hour film festival. And I was like working on this film where like you get the concept, you film, you edit, and you get it all out in that, like within 72 hours. And
that would have been fun.
This had been my second or third one, and I loved them. But I'm on hour like 55. I'm dead. I just been shooting and editing throughout the last 2 days. And during that time, emails weren't that busy, and I had mine on a loud ding. So like ding ding, and it was like, oh fuck, what the fuck is? It was like delirious. I look at the email and I just jumped out of my seat, and I'm like, wow, like Gary just emailed and said, hey, do you want a job? Do you want to come work for me?
Oh,
And
that's
so I was
amazing.
like, fuck. And I was like, no, I don't want a job. I want to like be I want to do my own thing. I want to be a storyteller. But at the time, freelance hadn't really been moving that well. My ex's aunt had been pressuring me into getting a job, and also like pushing me to go to like business school or college. I applied to a few colleges, did a few tours, was actually going to go to college in the fall of 2014, 20, and then ended up taking the job with Gary. I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna just learn how to do business. You're a real entrepreneur. And then got the job, started like filming and editing. I'm sorry, just started editing like old keynotes and put them up on YouTube in different ways, made shorter clips out of them. And then a month into my job, Gary's like, because I'm like getting bored, he's like, hey, let's start this new show called the Ask Gary V Show, where like people will ask questions and I'll answer them. And then so then we just started grinding on that, and that was the journey. 2014, July 2014, I started working Gary full time.
Love it. Love it. And like, I guess just to give the audience a bit of context, like what would an average day working with Gary look like? And for like, say, you know, how long you been with Vaynermedia now and Gary V?
Yeah, so I've been with Gary 8 years now.
Yep.
In the beginning, 2014, it was mostly just the Ask Gary V show and a bunch of random clips. And then what started happening was we started to figure out Facebook virality. And, you know, one like at some point, well, before Facebook virality, Gary had asked me to film these like 5 a.m. basketball games with the boys. And I had to like wake up at 4 because I had to come all the way from Queens. So wake up at 4, come into the city on the subway, film these basketball games from like 5 to 7:30, and then like go to the office at 8 and like do a whole work day. So I did a bunch of these like basketball games, and then you know I was starting to work on these like keynotes and then the Ask Gary V show, and I started to get a little bit bored. So I was like, you know what, Gary, let me like try to make another short film like what I had done earlier in the days. And he's like, sure, but like I needed to make sure you're doing all your other work first. And so I would film, I was like, hey, I'm gonna just work on this stuff at night. Like I would like, hey, film the games, then do all the real work, like the Ask Gary V show and the keynote editing. Then like from like 7 to 10 or 11 p.m., I'd work on my passion film projects for Gary. And you know, I had a lot of audio and like cool like storytelling from the Ask Gary V show and keynotes and random clips that I got of Gary, but I didn't have enough B-roll to like cover it up and make it look cool because I wanted like more cinematic stuff. So
Yeah.
like, hey Gary, can I like just come follow you around like a day or two just to get some B-roll? And so like at the end of this, he was like, sure, whatever, like, yeah, if you need to, you little artist. So then one day I like follow him around, 2 days I follow him around, get a B-roll. And at the end of it, I'm just like, bro, like your life is interesting. He's like, yeah, really? And I'm like, yeah, like this is really cool. And then you know, he had kept asking me like, hey, help me grow my YouTube. Go find people online. Go find people that like are really about their craft and know how to grow their YouTubes. And around that time, Casey Neistat started vlogging every single day. And he started to like tell these stories that were like so intricate and interesting and like so creative. And I was like, bro, we got to do this for you. And he's like, there's no way I'm filming myself all day. And I'm like, bro, I got you. I can do it. And he's like, nah, bro, like, we're not doing that. It's like too complicated. And then, you know, Casey really started to take off. His numbers started flying. And I'm like, Gary, we have to do this. He's like, all right, find a pack day, whatever. And I'm like, and I start planning with the team. The one day at like 5 a.m., he asked me to film the game. I make it the day that I'm gonna go follow him around. So I follow him at like 5 a.m. to like 8. 8:39, I show up in his next meeting. And if you look in the footage of Daily V1, you'll see where he's across the street in the like after the basketball, and I film and he looks up and he's kind of like, why are you here? And it was like at the moment where like Gary realized that I was gonna be following him around for the day. It took me a week to like edit that DailyV, and that was DailyV1, and then he was obsessed, and we started like we did one like another month later. We did another one like where I traveled with him to Vegas, and it was like when Snapchat was hot, so we started like really getting into storytelling. And then his new book had come out, the Ask Gary V book, so we started like to film the whole book tour and everything, and that's just how we started rolling. Before the Daily V's and all of that, we had figured out Facebook virality, where Gary had texted me on a Saturday night and said, hey, or Sunday night, and said, hey, it was like 7 p.m. He's like, yo, I really need you to show up tomorrow. I have and I gotta just rant. I gotta have something that I have to tell people. I gotta get it off my chest. So I show up in his house at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Monday morning, film this video where he's standing out on the corner of a street. It's freezing cold out. It's like February or something. And he's like, fuck you, Monday, da 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 da. And he's like, this is random rant. Like, he hasn't done a lot of these at this point. Well, I get home, I get back to the office at like 8. I edit the video, get it up by 9. Gary's Facebook page, from the time that he had started it until that time, had got 500,000 fans. So that's a lot for Facebook.
Yeah.
When we put that video live, by the end of that week, we had 1 million.
That's
it
nuts.
doubled his Facebook completely. And so we went, wait a minute, this is crazy. So then we started to like put a lot of virality clips on Facebook. We just found like a bunch of like moments in his keynotes that were interesting, da da da. Then I'm following Gary around for a Daily V, and we're doing a podcast with Charlamagne the God and Andrew Schultz. We had already done the Breakfast Club podcast once, but Andrew Schultz and Charlamagne the God had this like side podcast called The Brilliant Idiots, and we're filming it. And there's one moment where Gary's like, yo, you know, if you want this, you gotta bleed out of your eyes for a fucking dream. It reminded me of the Monday morning video. It reminded me of the Will Smith videos. So I chopped it up and we put that on Facebook, and it did the same thing, 1 million to 1.5.
Wow.
And we went, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Then Gary, Andy, and I all stood back and we went, wait a minute. Daily V is not about the vlog. It's about all the sawdust, all the moments that we can pull out of it. And that's when we started to go ham on Facebook short clips, which then started to exponentially grow this page. Then Instagram comes out where we're really like, we were doing a lot of quotes and like images and like we call them BSUs, branded status updates, just images with quotes on them. And like we did all this stuff, and we would do like stills of like the Ask Gary V show and be like, hey, link in the bio, go watch it. But then we started to put out all these micro clips, and that's when like Gary's Instagram really started to take off.
That's
and
awesome.
So, like, the daily vlogs were not the important part. It was the micro content that came out of it.
Hey, well, I think that's how I originally stumbled on Gary V's stuff. I think it was around 2014 from memory, and it was I was more on Instagram at that time. So yeah, so pretty interesting. And so like when you guys would do the Vegas trip or go to another state or another country, like would you be filming him like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, or would it be sort of around 11, or just whatever the day was, it just the day goes?
Yeah, whatever the day was, the day goes. I would say that like, most days I would pick him up at 7 a.m. 7:30 a.m. outside of his apartment, and I would get in the car with him, and we finish our days at 11:30 at night, and then I would go home and edit. In the beginning, I didn't have to do the same day turnaround, so I would like go film a day and then edit for 2 to 3 days, and then film the next day whenever I was available. And at some point I broke down. I was like, Gary, I need help. Like, this is a lot. I really need help. And that's when I hired my buddy Stefan from Pennsylvania, where I went to college with him. Hired him. He became my editor. That him and I jammed on it. And then eventually, like, we just started building the team of like video editors and stuff. Yeah, I mean, there were some crazy days. Like, I've done some filming where I'm like filming we fly to Belgium, we film all day. I would edit from like midnight to 5 a.m. And then show up and edit the filming area at 8, and we'd fly to another country, and I would just go from there. And then there were days where like, yeah, it's just like some crazy, like we flew to Dubai at landed at 8 a.m. after doing a 13-hour flight, landed at 8, shower and rest for an hour, start filming at 9 a.m., finish at 11 p.m., be on the plane home at midnight, fly right home from Dubai. And like we would do Dubai, Singapore, we would, like it was just like crazy. Like there was one year
Crazy.
we did 250 flights.
Wow,
There's
that's crazy.
355 days in a year.
Yeah,
Like there's
yeah,
like it's funny, like Gary and I have like recently been talking about like some of the past, and he's like, "Yo, that was crazy what we did." Like some of that traveling, like after
yeah.
COVID, we're like, "We'll never do that ever again." There's just so much to it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, awesome, awesome. And with like NFTs and VFriends, like where, like to you, what do you think is the impact and how it's helping people? What do you think's been the biggest impact with the creation of VFriends?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think, back in the day when I first heard that Gary wanted to build Walt Disney, he also said that he never wanted to like launch his own IP. He wanted to do like buy Bubblicious or buy Animal Crackers and rebrand them and make them into cool new contemporary brands, building off of like nostalgia. I always knew that Gary was creative and I thought he could always do more than that. And so one day he just like in January of 2021, he realized that he needed to like do his own project after hearing about NFTs and CryptoPunk. So we just go to Malibu, he draws for 10 days, he comes up with all these like characters. We launched an NFT project. The people that we onboarded early on made a lot of fucking money because they actually listened. They bought ETH when it was low, and they bought VFriend. I didn't have enough capital at the time. We had been investing so much money into like sports cards before that, but a lot of people made a lot of fucking money off of VFriends. But then it's just an NFT project that we're continually providing value to the community. But I'll also like say this is another like 10, 15-year project, right? Like Gary's brand has been around 4 years of making Wine Library TV, and then 8 years of his personal content. That's 12 years of personal brand to get Gary to a level of like where he is today. I think we need another 10 to 12 years for VFriends to really start having like the Netflix specials, the Pixar and Disney like animation quality films, the books, the children's like toys, all the things that we're gonna do with the brand. I believe in Gary as a business executor. I think that he is more multidimensional than people believe. Seeing him build Vaynermedia from 0 to 1,500 employees, global office, Vayner at Pure Wow, 1:37 p.m. and all these different Vayner Sports, all the Resi, all these like different things that he's been a part of. He's so wide touch and able to operate and hire the right operators to run these businesses. So I believe that we're gonna really turn VFriends into a monster, hopefully our Disney, and I'm here for the ride.
So cool, so cool. And so like with Wine Library, so just to give a bit of context to the audience, like episode 1, he got no views, and leading into how many episodes, just so people can understand, like it didn't just happen overnight. Like it's taken the time to get to where he is now.
Yeah, so like kind of like what I said earlier, like Gary brand was, he had 20,000 on Instagram, he had like 20,000 on YouTube, he had 1 million on Twitter, and he was doing Wine Library TV for 5 years, and he put out an episode every single day for he put out 1,000 episodes. I always tell, and then he put out 1,000 episodes, and he wasn't where he is today. That was just the building blocks of like when I kind of like before I met him, and then I was like, wait a minute, like people want to build a brand, and they don't even have 1,000 episodes of anything, or 1,000 videos, or 1,000 articles, or 1,000 graphics. So I always tell people like, hey, if you really want to do the 10,000 hours, the 1,000 episodes thing, that like you need to just like put in a lot of work consistently for 3, 4, 5 years straight to just have the hope of a prayer, of seeing your ad, and people lose patience early on.
Yeah, so cool, so cool. And can you tell us a bit about you're working on writing a book? What stage you're at with the book, and what was the inspiration to starting it?
Yeah, I think, as I've said early on, like I've always been writing and always been like dabbling in that. I think, I've been reading a lot more books recently, and they've been changing my life. I am in the process of ideating the concept around it and figuring out all the people that are going to be included in my book. But the general concept is how to make your dream job, or how to get your dream job, or how to create your dream job. And it's going to be the story of like working for free, reaching out, doing like pro bono work, influencing people. Like there's so many people who have done pro bono work, and like, listen, we're doing a podcast, right? This is free content that you're putting out there for people to hear and listen to. There's something in this podcast that I hope people will understand, that they can go off and go do it on their own, but they have to go like take that step. And I think my book will dive deep into that, of like, they have so many pros and cons of like, people hate the word work for free. They think their time is worth something. And I always think that like my time is not worth anything until I get the opportunity and the shot and the at bat. And I feel like too many people think that their time is worth something when it's actually not.
Awesome.
Before
awesome.
it like actually is, So like,
Yeah.
really breaking that down, interviewing a ton of people who have done it, well-known name, off-known name, people behind the scenes. I think there's, if you want to be a successful whatever, like say you want to be a successful musician right now, but you don't have the skill, or there's so many people out like who are way better than you. There's so many jobs nowadays in music besides actually the artist, and you can be a part of the outer circle or the inner circle of an up and coming music artist and crush it for them and be a part of something that you love, and not just get that 9-to-5 job because you weren't the music artist or you never made it. And too many people don't realize how many options there are around the thing that they love to do. So I want to like explore that, either it be being a content creator for yourself, or being a content creator, or support for somebody else.
Love it. And you've got a clothing brand. What stage is that at the moment?
Yeah, so I for the years have worked on a lot of like hoodies and like merchandise for myself. Brought up like sold a couple hundred of each of them. Loved the process, loved it, loved seeing like people messaging me like saying, hey, like this was very motivational. I wear it a lot just to like feel motivated. And then one day, I became a big fan of like Virgil Abloh and a lot of like these like fashion designers that were up and coming. And I realized what I was doing with just putting quotes on hoodies and not really becoming a designer. So I started to design something every single day. The company is called Made By. I want to do a lot of collaborations and curate a lot of like up and coming designers, as well as come out with my own staple pieces. And I have a few plans. Like right now, I'm just in the ideating and building brand business. I think in the next 10 years, I'll have a shot at like having a real cool brand that I fuck with. There's a lot of like, I'm kind of picky with clothes, and I want to make the stuff that I want to wear and rock. And so like that's it's just gonna be a long journey, and just have fun with it. I feel like too many people. I have a very good understanding of how much time things take. And because if you hear my numbers, it's like 10 years, 10 years, 10 years, because I really believe that's how long it takes, right?
The
So it really
process.
feels meaningful. Yeah. And like, by the way, if it's in 5, great. But at least I set myself up for the long-term thinking and not rushing anything. I want to be smart.
100%. And so if there's something like, is there something currently you find challenging in your day-to-day?
Yeah, I think, like everybody, we all have things, and like we all lack patience. I think, back to me saying, hey, 10 years, I often say it out loud because I'm telling myself as a reminder often, but also like, in the short term, it feels like things take forever.
Yeah.
But just pulling yourself out of that thinking and working on other stuff. Like I recently read Atomic Habits last summer, which really helped me like build up smaller habits and then build up to a bigger goal. So I embraced that lifestyle a lot. But then also reprioritizing your goals every 3 or 4 months. I'll be on a flight or be sitting somewhere and be like, I need to rewrite and restructure what I want to prioritize. And I'll write them in a notepad in my phone, go on my calendar later on, put in things into my calendar to like as goals and benchmarks. And then I'll keep like reprioritizing that as like new things come in or new ideas or I start losing interest in one. I'm like, is that something I really care about, or should I drop that? And I think too many people say, hey, I'm going to do this. They do it for 2 years and they're really not liking it the entire time. And they wait too long to get rid of that habit or that thing. And so I really am getting good at that, as well as saying no to a lot more things. And then I also believe in so yeah, reprioritization. Oh yeah, on day like things that over the last few years as a creative I've gotten better at is there are days where I can bang out like 5 videos, or Gary, like when I was in the heat of it, I could like bang out 5 Instagram videos, no problem. And then the next day I would come in and be like, I got nothing. I can't even make one. I can't even complete that. Like it's not even like possible. And so then, instead of banging my head and getting stuck and frozen on that, I would spend a lot of my time, oh wait, why don't I just do all the other bullshit work like email and like getting back to people and like like filling out my health insurance stuff, do the stuff that wasn't creative. So then I kept tapping into when I feel creative, go all in, double down. Even if I had a lot of like priority stuff for my life, I would push it aside, go all in on the creative side. And if that took a day, 5 days, I just ignored everything else. And then when I lost that creativity spark, I would go into like temporary and like just all the other stuff around it. So I think tapping into like when you know that you're going to be more creative or not. Like nowadays, a new version of that for me is I've been doing 75 hard, where you work out twice a day. My favorite time to work out is 1 to 3 in the middle of the day, because I like waking up, getting to the office early, or waking up and getting to my laptop early, banging for a few hours on all the stuff that I have to do, take a break in the middle of my day, work out, get refreshed, shower again, get back to the office or wherever I'm working that day, and grind it out until the evening. And that just tends to be how I like to work. And because of COVID and because of like how our new world works, so you have a little bit more freedom, I think a lot more people should tap into like when they feel it from a creativity or work productivity level, and when they don't, and like keep plugging and playing, like when they like keep experimenting with yourself.
Awesome. And so like, do you do any meditation or breath work or any daily habits that start the morning or start your day that you find if you don't do it, you're more triggered and reactive? Or
yeah, I would say the one right now that I'm really prioritizing is the 2 workouts a day.
Yeah.
I'm on day like 19 right now, the 75 hard thing.
Yeah.
So there's like, quite a few more days left. So that's been my main one. And no, I think that comes back into the reprioritization of like, like when I think about, hey, when I'm going through the 75 hard challenge, I'm going to just follow the things that they have there. When I come out of it, I'm going to try to figure out new habits and new things and like new hacks,
Awesome.
Nothing that ever stuck. I will say I've been doing like a chapter of a day of reading, and I think that really unlocked a lot of like micro habit hacks, because reading was difficult for me. I would read like 1, maybe 2 books a year if I had like a nice long vacation or I got really into it. Now I've removed the thinking about reading and I just read 1 chapter a day, and it like completely is unlocked. Oh wait, I don't need to read 3 chapters and then like the next day be like tired of reading. I'll just read 1 a day and remove the friction. And so I'm hacking with that stuff of like all my other stuff in my life that I want to accomplish. Hey, do I just design something for 20 minutes a day? And that's part of the made by thing. Hey, how much of my time am I focusing on? What's the most impactful thing I can do for VFriends that like I am working on currently? What's the most impactful thing for Gary when I was in that role that I could like work on,
Awesome stuff. And if there was someone out there that is struggling, may have lost their job over the last 2 years, and they could be in their 50s or 60s and they need to work, like what would you say to them what would you say to them to help them, where they could start, what they could do?
You said what age?
In their 50s and 60s?
Yeah, so my mom is 69 right now. She's still trying to find her passion in life, and she's still trying to find work. So this is very relatable to me. Listen, I think you're incredibly young at 60 or 69. I think you have 30 more years of your life. I always think of like back to like context and time. I'm 31 years old right now. You say that to a 50 or 60-year-old, that's 20 years more than me, or 30 more years more than me. I rewind it back, like, okay, what's 20 years ago for me? And I say, oh wait, 20 years ago was like when I was, 11. And so 20, like, I was a baby, and so much has happened in 20 years that I think if you're 60, you have until 80. That's a lot of time to think you don't have anything to do, or like no more impact or normal. Like, there's so much time, and like, just keep taking care of your health. Do your doctor checkups regularly, and like eat healthy and live a healthy lifestyle. And then I would say, like, surround yourself with younger people, and like surround people with like new ideas. And like sometimes it's relocating to a place that's more inspirational for you, or just putting yourself like listening to podcasts, or pulling up motivational videos, or like reframing your mindset to think that 60 or 50 is not the end of your life. It's just halftime, and there's so much more time after that.
So awesome. So, and then just one last one. If it's a person that's they're 15 or in their 20s and they're frustrated, like they're putting, throwing stuff out there in the direction they want to be going in, but nothing's sticking, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, I mean, listen, right now, I wish I wasn't passionate about one thing, honestly, because I have an ADD or a creative mind, and I just want to try everything. And so I would say, if you are young and and old, even if you're 50 and you don't know what quite you like, I would say go dive into like the thing, like try, if you've always thought, hey, I want to be a chef, take a skill share and learn how to cook. Like, or if you want to like dabble in art because NFTs are cool and you think you have a cool project and vision, like go try it. Like, a lot of times people, it's funny, I'm working on this interview with this fashion designer, and she framed it up in a good way, like make drafts. Like, people always, like, when they set out to make a video or an article or a post, they get caught up because by the time they like finish it, they think it's not good. Where a lot of times that stuff is the stuff that's good. It's the raw, it's the authentic, it's it's the making of. Put it out there, get feedback from the two people that see it, keep building on that. Put out drafts, put out things that are like more raw. And so I got inspired by Virgil and Kanye West. Honestly, Kanye West unlocked a lot for me on Twitter, because there was a time years ago when he was going to China for Yeezys and like building out his new fashion design. And he just started tweeting out a bunch of random images of like China, like objects and tags and like different things. And I was like, wait a minute, this is his stream of consciousness. This is like things he's thinking about for inspiration and pulling from. And if you think about a lot of the things like Virgil Abloh does too, what Virgil does is unveil what Nike was, right? He pulled back the layer and was like, hey, these are shoelaces. This is the tongue of a shoe. This is like the sole of a shoe. Like, and he just like deconstructed what Nike was. And I think that's why it impacted a lot of things. So a lot of people are thinking, hey, I gotta come out with like Avatar, or I gotta like make my movie look like a Gary Vee short film. Meanwhile, they're not even putting out their drafts or their ideas in the rawest of form. And I would encourage people to do that.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, DRock. Thanks for being on Unlocked from Within. Hopefully we get to do this again.
I would love that. Hey, I really appreciate your time, Marty, and you're a great host. And thank you for having me.
Thanks again, DRock.
Of course.
Thank you again for listening or watching another episode of Unlocked from Within. Could you please like and share the podcast with anyone you think it would help? And please leave a review and subscribe. You can check out DRock on Instagram @DRock and his fashion brand @MadeBy, Twitter @DavidRockNYE, and LinkedIn DavidRock. Thanks again. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.